Truth isn't an opinion, it's a law. The Egyptians named it Maat, not a feather-crowned myth, but the operating principle of reality, order, balance. Truth, the way you live inside gravity. The famous scales aren't courtroom theater, they're measurement. Your heart is weighed against a standard of lightness every day you breathe. When we traded universal law for man-made loopholes, we didn't get freedom, we got friction, anxious bodies, brittle institutions, and a culture that calls spin truth and chaos normal. This film is a recall notice for the soul. We'll meet Maat as uncreated law, decode the feather as a standard, show how nature's rhythms teach alignment, and turn ancient icon into daily practice, radical honesty, right action, quick course correction, no perfection theater, real feedback, in real time, from your own heart. If you felt the world tilt and wondered why, you're not broken, you're feeling the field. Let's re-enter balance by design. Before anything was named, order was already here, not added after the fact like a tidy-up crew, but present as the very pattern through which anything can appear. The Egyptians pointed to that pattern and called it M-A-A-T, truth, balance, proportion, the lattice reality grows on. In the old hymns, she isn't born, she's assumed, the way gravity is assumed. You don't invent gravity to keep planets polite. Planets are possible because gravity already island. So it is with Maat. Creation doesn't start as chaos and get tidied later. Creation happens through order, or it doesn't hold. That one shift changes everything. It means reality doesn't wait to judge you at the end. It responds to you in real time. It means the law isn't a set of opinions. It's the way things work whether we like it or not. This matters because it removes the excuse. If order is baseline, then every violation has a cost not as punishment from above, but as consequence from within. You can step off a cliff and swear you don't believe in gravity. The ground will vote last. You can decorate a lie with clever words. Your nervous system will still know it's heavy. Maat is the field that rewards coherence and flags dissonance. Kemet named the dissonance Isfet unravel. Disorder, the sandstorm that erases tracks. You feel it as static in the body, friction in relationships, noise in the mind. Maat is not a policeman. She is the tuning fork. Fall out of tune, and the song falls apart. Some mechanics are better shared off-platform where nuance survives. Join our free newsletter at the link in the description and enter your email while it's available. You'll also receive a free ebook copy of our book, Limited Time, Not a Reward. We see Maat in nature because nature is her first scripture. Orbital rhythms don't miss their cue. Seasons balance growth with rest. The golden ratio whispers through seed heads and shells, not as mysticism, but as efficient packing and elegant flow. Rivers meander to minimize energy loss. Forests share sugars through mycorrhizal webs to maintain the whole. A hawk takes the mouse, and the field stays in tune. Remove the hawk and rabbits bloom into famine. Balance isn't blandness, it's dynamic poise. Too much of one thing, not enough of another, and the line snaps. This is not moralizing, it's mechanics. Zoom in, and your own body plays by the same law. Breathe out as long as you breathe in, and the heart finds its tempo. Sleep on time and the hormones harmonize. Yank the rhythm, and your mood tells the truth your schedule denies. You can bully your diary for a week. Your joints, your gut, your patience will invoice you. Maat is not offended. She doesn't sulk. She measures. The measure is immediate. That is why tiny betrayals feel larger than they look on paper, and small alignments feel richer than they should for their size. The field reads weight, not PR. There's an instinct to file this as poetry, to bow politely at ancient wisdom and go back to modern shortcuts. But the Egyptians weren't writing greetings cards. They were describing an operating principle. Even their gods stand under it. In reliefs, the pharaoh offers Maat herself to the god, meaning, I rule by this standard. not by my appetite. That inversion is the point. Where man-made law floats above the people, universal law floats above the rulers too. Where man-made rules can be gamed by language, universal law is immune to spin. You can optimize optics and still be out of tune. The consequences arrive anyway, sometimes slowly, then all at once. So what, precisely, does Maat measure? Not piety theater, not spotless record-keeping. She weighs congruence. Is your inside matched by your outside? Do word, deed, and consequence rhyme? The feather is a standard, not an ornament. In physics terms, think resonance. A bridge that hums at the right frequency stands. A bridge that takes a rhythm it can't integrate collapses. Hearts do the same. A light heart is not frivolous. It is unburdened by self-betrayal. A heavy heart is not bad. It is dense with avoided truth and unkept promises. You can feel both without anyone telling you what to think. Because Maat is uncreated, she is not nice. She is kind in the way truth is kind. She corrects without cruelty. Put your hand to a hot pan, no court, no sermon, just feedback. Live against your values, expect the same. Irritability, confusion, small self-sabotages that look like bad luck until you trace the pattern. Live in alignment and the field answers with ordinary miracles. Doors when you knock, help when you ask, sleep that actually rests you. This isn't magical thinking. It's what tends to happen when load and structure match, when your choices don't fight the grain of the world. You can argue this culturally or personally. The law holds at both scales. Communities that honor balance between extraction and regeneration, rights and responsibilities, speed and stillness earn stability that compounds. Systems that game man-made loopholes against universal limits get short spikes and long crashes. On a Tuesday morning, this looks like simple decisions: how you earn, what you eat, whether you tell the small truth when a lie would save face. The feather doesn't care about your brand, it cares about your weight. The good news is immediate too. When you deviate, correct quickly. Skip perfection theater. Choose the repair. The beauty of an uncreated law is that it is always at hand. You don't need permission to use it. You need willingness. One honest breath will do to begin. Next, we'll get precise about the scales, how the feather works as a daily instrument, why the 42 confessions read like maintenance notes, and how your life already functions as a hall of truth, whether you name it that or not. The scales were never built to scare you. They were built to show you. In the Egyptian imagination, the feather isn't decoration, it's the standard, not a symbol of perfection, a tool of resonance. The image endures because the physics do. A heart that matches the feather's lightness floats. A heart loaded with self-betrayal sinks. That's not a threat, it's a readout. Think of the feather as an instrument you can pick up in any moment. You ask it silent questions, and it answers through your nervous system. Lighter or heavier, more ease or more friction. There's no waiting room outside a cosmic courtroom. The hall of truth is continuous. Your breath is the witness. Your sleep is testimony. Your relationships are the cross-examination. When you blur the truth, your body tracks the cost before your mind writes the excuse. This is why the famous negative confessions aren't a fear list. They're a maintenance list. 42 ways to keep drag off the heart. I have not falsified measures. Isn't about impressing auditors. It's about refusing to carry the weight of distortion. I have not stopped my ears to truth is a promise to stay teachable so the heart doesn't calcify. The old lines read legalistic until you run them through the feather and the body nods. Of course, lightness follows from that. Of course, heaviness follows. Test it in small places, and you'll see the pattern. You say you'll be somewhere at 8 and arrive at 8:06 with a nice story. The story weighs more than the 6 minutes. You dodge a hard conversation and feel immediate relief. The feather notices the bill arriving under the door. Tension, second, guessing, noise. You eat on time and sleep on rhythm for 3 days and wake clear. The heart float is physical. You take an action that fits your values, and there is a very particular buoyancy to the day. The feather does not demand spotless behavior. It asks for congruence, words, deeds, and consequences in rhyme. When they rhyme, you're weightless enough to be guided. When they clash, you get dense and dull. You miss the quiet cues that would have saved you effort. Alignment looks like less drama, fewer mysterious setbacks, and more of those ordinary, almost boring wins that compound. Misalignment looks like small frictions everywhere, lost keys, short tempers, loops of explanation that don't settle. So how do you use the feather without turning your life into perfection theater? By switching from judgment to calibration. Pilots don't panic when a dial drifts. They correct. Do the same. Ask, what would make this lighter without making it false? Sometimes the lightest thing is a sentence. I said yes too fast. Here's the honest no. Sometimes it's a repair within 24 hours, so the weight doesn't set. Sometimes it's silence, letting a truth breathe before you package it. Lightness isn't laziness. It's the absence of drag. Because Maat is kind, the way truth is kind. Feedback is immediate and precise. Your job isn't to perform your innocence. It's to notice the readout and respond. One way to keep it simple: feel for 3 cues. Body softness, breath depth, eye steadiness. When a choice lines up, you'll sense more space in all 3. When it doesn't, you'll feel the constriction. You don't need a priest for that. You need attention. A quick personal audit makes this concrete. Which tiny lie keeps finding you on Tuesdays? Where do you overpromise by 5% and pay with 95% stress? What conversation, if spoken plainly, would make next week's mornings feel light again? You don't have to answer out loud. The feather heard the real answers as you read the questions. Notice too that other people's responses are part of the instrument. If your truth-telling lands like a weapon, you may be outsourcing your heaviness. If your kindness feels sticky, it might be a concealed no. The scale is exacting but never cruel. It will show you where to adjust: tone, timing, context, courage. You learn to tell the lightest true thing you can say now, not the heaviest truth you hope someone else will carry for you. Once you start reading the world this way, excuses look expensive. So does bravado. Lightness has a sound. It doesn't shout. Heaviness has a smell. It clings. Your task isn't to become ethereal. It's to become honest enough to float. The reward isn't cosmic points later. It's competence now. Fewer unforced errors. More trust that doesn't need selling. A calendar that stops punishing you. A body that stops arguing with you. This is the practical gift of the scales. They collapse the gap between spiritual and ordinary. You don't have to wait for incense and allegory to do the work. The register beeps at the shop when you scan the wrong barcode. The same thing happens in your day. Hear the beep and choose again. In the next chapter, we'll zoom out to what happens when man-made rules try to outrank this law, why optics win for a season, why systems drift, and why the bill always arrives with interest in the end. The feather teaches you to read weight. Man-made law teaches you to read paperwork. Those two are not enemies, but they are not the same. One asks, is this in tune? The other asks, is this allowed? When allowed replaces in tune, we get clever, fast, and heavy. The Egyptians understood the order. In temple reliefs, the ruler offers a tiny image of Maat to the gods, a way of saying, I stand under the law, not above it. Power bows to balance. Even divinities are pictured measuring against the feather. The message is simple and difficult. No one outruns consequence. You can stretch a rule. You cannot stretch reality. History drifts when we reverse that picture. We crown our rules as ultimate and treat the field as negotiable. Language becomes a lever. Term sheets, spin, plausible deniability, compliance theater. The incentives line up around what is provable on paper, not what is bearable in life. If the quarterly slide looks light, the weight must be fine. If the contract says it's covered, The harm must be imaginary. We start living by alibis. This is how chaos becomes profitable. Not with mustache-twirling villains, but with metrics that reward short spikes and ignore long costs. We measure the happening, not the consequence. We optimize for the sale, not the cycle. Growth outpaces regeneration. Engagement ignores attention burn. Efficiency forgets resilience. The numbers smile while the foundation groans. For a season, it works. Then the bill arrives. You can feel this inversion in the body. Ever delivered exactly what was asked and still felt off? You ticked the boxes, sent the email, met the KPI, and slept like gravel. That's Maat telling you the form cleared and the substance missed. We call it stress as if it's random. Often it's the residue of doing the permitted instead of the aligned. The calendar fills, the heart sinks. Man-made law is useful. It lets strangers cooperate, sets boundaries, punishes clear harms. But when it tries to outrank universal law, it becomes a mask. A permitted extraction still harms a river. A legal loophole can still bankrupt a neighborhood of trust. A carefully worded half-truth can still rot a partnership. Reality weighs outcomes, not arguments. If it takes more energy to defend a thing than to do it cleanly, the scale is already telling you the answer. There's a pattern to these inversions. We standardize what is easy to count and outsource what is heavy to the edges. Hidden costs become someone else's day. The gig worker's back, the night shift nurse's sleep, the soil's thinness, the inbox that never stops blinking. Systems look light. People feel heavy. That is not efficiency. That is Isfet with a glossy deck. Watch how incentives speak. If the system pays for volume, you will get volume, even where care is needed. If it pays for speed, you will get speed, even where slowness saves lives. If it pays for attention, you will get outrage, even where quiet would heal. None of this requires conspiracy. It only requires forgetting that Maat sits above the spreadsheet. You can legislate around the feather, but you cannot repeal it. We make policies and find loopholes. Rivers answer with floods. We brand our food as healthy. Bodies answer with inflammation. We reframe despair as burnout. The nervous system answers with a hard stop. Universal law is patient and exact. It does not need to argue. It delivers readouts. So what do we do inside systems that reward the wrong tilt? We remember what the reliefs taught. Even the highest stand under Maat. A leader who submits to the measure will design incentives that repay truth, not theater. Reporting that tracks outcomes over optics. Bonuses tied to repair as much as to gain. Success defined as net lightness across self, others, and the whole. It sounds idealistic until you do the maths on turnover, lawsuits, brand collapse, and the quiet cost of cynicism. Integrity is cheaper than damage control, always. At the street level, this looks ordinary and brave. A procurement team chooses durability over discount and saves a decade of silent waste. A newsroom refuses a bait headline and keeps trust that money can't buy back. A manager protects a boundary, no emails after 9, and productivity rises because nervous systems do. None of this is mystical. All of it is Maat. The diagnostic is simple, and it will not flatter us. Are our rules producing balance or merely permission? Do the people closest to the work feel lighter or more brittle? Do our fixes reduce the need for future fixes? If the answers tilt the wrong way, the law we are following is too small. Rewrite it, not with slogans, but with structures. Put the feather back above the pen. When we ignore this, we train ourselves to admire the mask. PR replaces confession. Litigation replaces repair. Policy replaces responsibility. We become brilliant at talking about harm and bad at stopping it. The field keeps score anyway. Relationships fray. Towns hollow out. Ecosystems signal no more in a language older than ours. The feather does not move. We do. Culture helps normalize this drift, retelling the story until permission feels like virtue and optics pass for truth. In the next chapter, we'll look at that myth engine, how entertainment, ritual, and language turn afterlife theater into a hall pass now, and how to hear the old standard humming underneath the noise. The stories we swim in don't just entertain us, they teach us what to want and when to clap. Over time, the teaching hides inside the spectacle. When the camera cuts right and the music swells, our bodies say yes before our minds ask whether the thing is true. That is how the myth engine works, not as a conspiracy room but as an incentive stack. What repeats gets remembered. What is easy to sell gets crowned as good. What keeps us watching returns next season dressed as virtue. In this engine, Maat often gets rewritten as afterlife theater. Judgment becomes later, so permission becomes now. If reckoning is postponed to a distant hall, today can be all optics. We learn to act as if truth is a brand tone and balance is a headline. We can mean well and still play the game. Statement first, measurement later, sometimes never. The tilt is subtle. Perform the right posture, collect approval, move on. The scale moves, but we don't look down. Notice the templates that win the budget. Heroes restore the status quo. Rebels are coded as risk. The arc rewards the brave who save the city by breaking a few rules, then resets to business as usual. Harmony is framed as quietness, not as right relationship. Dissonance is exciting. It sells tickets. Nuance is slow. It doesn't. The lesson our bodies inhale. Speed is virtue. Conflict is meaning. And endings are tidy, even when costs are not. After enough repetitions, we expect the world to behave like a movie. Trending does more than list what's popular. It tells us where to look. Momentum becomes proof. A clip surges, and the algorithm places a crown on its head. We borrow the judgment and call it taste. Repetition builds authority. When enough people share a line, my truth, no rules, just results, win at all costs, it starts to feel like evidence. The field does not tilt with a hashtag, but our attention does. And attention is the doorway most of us use to enter reality. Rituals drift too. A holiday without measure becomes costume without compass. Hashtags replace confession. Moments of silence stand in for repair. We gather, we pose, we post, and for a few hours the heaviness lifts because the room agreed to applaud. Maat is patient with ceremony, but she does not confuse it with balance. A river remains heavy after the speech. A partner remains hurt after the slogan. The scale asks, what changed when the microphone switched off? Language slides in the same direction, and we hardly notice because the new words feel flattering. Authenticity becomes performance with better lighting. Accountability becomes a statement crafted by a team. Justice becomes a PR strategy. And balance becomes an aesthetic muted beiges and tidy grids. We buy the look of Maat and leave the work of her law. It's not malice. It's attention economics training us to choose the visible over the real, the shareable over the measurable. You can feel the gap the moment you try to live differently. Try telling the lightest true sentence in a room tuned for applause and watch how quiet it gets. Try stepping out of outrage when outrage is the currency and feel how quickly the invitations dry up. The myth engine prefers momentum to repair. Repair is boring to watch and costly to actors. It ends scenes instead of starting new ones. The camera looks away just when the feather begins to matter. This isn't an argument against story. Story is how humans remember law, but the wrong incentives warp the memory. When the arc rewards optics over outcomes, we learn to pose rather than weigh. When the crowd cheers a performative apology, we are tempted to mistake the noise for lightness. When a villain is redeemed by a tearful monologue with no restitution, we are taught that words are weightless. The field does not accept this currency. It asks for changes you can feel at breakfast. What do we do with the stories we already love? We keep them and read them with the scale in view. Which moments in this film produce real lightness? Which lines only look light because the music told us so? If we replay the scene without the swelling strings, does the choice still weigh the same? This is how you build taste that aligns with Maat, by testing resonance, not applause. A good story leaves you clear and quietly stronger. A heavy story leaves you buzzing and oddly brittle. You don't need to cancel your favorites. You need to recover your instrument. That's how we stop outsourcing our conscience to the crowd. You can enjoy a franchise and still say, not that part. You can join a ritual and still add the repair it forgot. You can post the square and also change the habit. The myth engine will reward the surface either way. The feather won't. Keep asking the question no algorithm can answer. Did this choice reduce suffering and increase coherence across self, others, and the whole? Look for the small architectures that push you toward optics. Open plans where no one can do deep work, but everyone can be seen. Metrics that count posts, not repairs. Comment sections that train the tongue to win, not to heal. None of these are evil. They're simply tilted. When you know the tilt, you can brace against it. You can bring slowness where the cut wants speed, and truth where the punchline wants the room. There's a gentler thread running through culture now, the return of appetite for things that age well. Long-form conversation, craft that lasts, transparency that survives a bad week. That's Maat humming under the noise. You know it when you feel calmer after the watch, not whipped up, more likely to keep a promise, not to keep scrolling. These are the tales that make the heart float, not because they are preachy, but because they align the inner and the outer without needing a spotlight. If culture seeds the posture, language writes the code. Words are how the myth installs itself in the body. Phrases become scripts. Scripts become reflex. In the next part, we'll get forensic about the compiler, the everyday sentences that add weight disguised as wisdom, and the replacements that make your speech and your heart move like a feather. Language doesn't just describe your world, it compiles it. Phrases are tiny programs. Run them often enough and they stop, sounding like instructions. They sound like you. The myth engine gives you plots. Language installs the settings. That's why a single sentence can add weight to a day, or lift it like a window opened after rain. We inherit most scripts before we can edit them. Don't talk back. Be a good boy divided by girl. That's just the way at Island. Later they get a corporate polish. Be realistic. Be a team player. Stay in your lane, or a spiritual gloss. Everything happens for a reason. Love and light. None of these are evil. They're shortcuts. But shortcuts cut. They shave nuance, permission the convenient, and slide the bill under the rug for later. Watch how the body responds to certain lines. No one's perfect, can be humble or a hall pass. If your jaw tightens when you say it, you aren't excusing humanity, you're excusing avoidance. It is what it is, might mean acceptance, but often it means I'm too tired to repair this. Be realistic. Sometimes means respect constraints. Sometimes it means I can't hold the courage your idea asks for. The feather weighs the sentence, not the font. You can spot the cost in small places. The quick "we'll circle back" that creates 4 emails and a stolen Saturday. The polite "maybe I can make it" that sits like a stone in 2 calendars. The smiling "it's fine" that buys peace for an hour and resentment for a week. Heavy words "spend your future" or a family reflex. A child asks why a rule exists. "Don't talk back," comes the line. The question folds, and so does the habit of asking. Years later, that child now you feels a tightness. Anytime a boundary needs a voice. From the outside, it looks like kindness. Inside, it feels like grit in the ribs. The sentence kept the room tidy. It also added weight. Language can perform truth while avoiding it. "I hear you," delivered with no action. Accountability, as a statement crafted by a team. We take this seriously. When nothing has changed but the adjectives. Legalese versus living law. One is a shield, the other is a scale. If a sentence takes more energy to defend than to do, it is heavier than it sounds. Be wary of weaponized honesty. "I'm just being honest" is often code for I want to drop my heaviness on your floor. Brutal honesty is a contradiction. If it's brutal, it isn't light. The feather favors compassionate precision. Say the lightest true thing available, to the right person, at the right time, with the repair you can actually carry. A scalpel cuts. A sledgehammer satisfies an appetite and calls it clarity. Words don't only fill the air, they schedule your future. I should plants guilt on your calendar. I choose plants a decision. I won't plants a boundary. The difference looks small on paper and huge in the nervous system. I should go to the gym hums with failure before you tie your laces. I choose to move my body today starts light. You either do it or you don't, and the heart isn't taxed by shame. A quick self-check. Which phrase do you use to avoid a repair? Which sentence do you say to be liked instead of to be true? Which corporate charm has replaced a boundary? You can feel the answers as a temperature change under the collarbone. That's the compiler at work. It isn't punishing you. It's showing you what your mouth just promised your body to carry. Editing language is how we smuggle Maat back into the day. Tiny swaps change the weight of a week. Replace should with choose or won't. Trade. Be realistic. For what's the lightest viable way? Switch, don't talk back, to ask me why, and I'll show you the rule. Say I'm not ready to answer, instead of inventing a white lie. None of this requires a new personality. It requires an editor. If the compiler is inside, the editor must be too. In the next part, we open the field. Manual 7 simple tools that make language, choices, and relationships move like a feather, with repairs measured in hours, not years. If the code runs inside you, the editor must be you. This is the hinge, the point where the scales stop being a picture on a papyrus and start becoming a tool in your pocket. We aren't waiting for incense. We're running an operating system. The aim is not to perform innocence. It's to reduce drag, lighter heart, clearer breath, cleaner days. You'll feel the feedback immediately, because Maat is not a bureaucracy. She's a tuning fork. Begin with the simplest move, the feather check. 90 seconds, hand on heart, eyes soft. One breath to arrive, one to listen, one to choose. Ask, what's the lightest true action I can take next? Not the grand gesture. The next step that removes weight without adding spin. You'll be surprised how small it often. Island. A message that says, I said yes too fast. Here's my honest no. A glass of water before you try to solve your life. Closing a tab. Moving a meeting you were going to resent. Light action creates signal. The body registers ease, and the day stops arguing with you. Repeat this. Anytime choice rattles your ribs. The point is not certainty, it's congruence. Keep score where it matters with an integrity ledger. At night, 2 quiet columns. Kept and slipped. Kept means you honored a promise to yourself counts. Slipped means you didn't, and you will repair. No speeches to yourself, no courtroom theatrics, just a line or two. You're training recognition, not shame. Most people quit because they can't be perfect. You're aiming for net lightness across the week. 3 honest repairs can weigh less than 1 shiny lie. When you log a slip, write the earliest clean action you can take tomorrow. Put it in the calendar. Weight drops when the repair has a time. There's a way to tell the truth that makes you lighter and a way that makes the room carry your stone. Choose confession, not performance. 1 honest correction a day is enough to change your weather. I missed the deadline I promised. Here is the new one I can keep, and here is what I'll cut to make it real. No pleas for absolution, no grand mea culpa posted to harvest approval. Confession is a clean statement plus a repair you can carry. Performance is volume in place of weight. If your honesty leaves others doing the heavy lifting for you, try again with fewer adjectives and more action. You will know you got it right when the air between you softens and your spine feels taller instead of louder. When a decision starts to sprawl, run the tri-scale test. Weigh it against 3 plates: self, others, whole. Self asks, does this choice leave me clearer and more capable tomorrow? Others asks, does it reduce unnecessary suffering or debt for the people it touches? Whole asks, does it honor the wider system, team, community, ecology, or does it export the cost? If two plates tilt heavy, change the decision. If one tilts heavy, mitigate before you proceed. Sometimes you can't make every plate feather light. Then you document the weight, share it, and choose the minimum viable harm with a plan to repair. Decisions that advertise benefit while hiding load make hearts dense. Choices that acknowledge trade-offs keep the field honest and often attract unexpected help. Give yourself a stillness window, 10 minutes, same time daily, no content, no goals. Sit or stand, let your breath lengthen until exhale equals inhale. You're not aiming for mystical fireworks. You're letting the metronome of your nervous system find its tempo so the day doesn't drag you like a river in flood. On the surface, nothing happens. Underneath, everything realigns. Edges soften. Impulsive speech loses its voltage. The feather check gets clearer because you can hear the difference between fear and guidance. People skip this because it looks unproductive. In practice, it's the cheapest source of competence you have. Spend where your values would sign their name. Value-aligned spend is not only about money, it's money, time, and clicks. Redirect 10% toward what increases balance, craft that lasts, food that doesn't punish your body, work that treats humans like humans, creators who repair rather than inflame. Add friction to what adds weight. Unsubscribe, hide, unfollow. Delete the shortcut that keeps costing you mornings. If moving 10% feels large, move 5. The point is to make your ledger rhyme with your mouth. You'll feel the relief each time you stop funding your own heaviness. Your attention is a budget. Spend it like rent. Make the miss short. Rapid course correct beats shame every time. When you slip, repair within 24 hours where possible. A quick call that says, I dropped this, here's the fix, and the new boundary that stops the repeat saves a month of silent drag. Shame loves delay. Delay grows interest. You are not proving purity. You are keeping the system light enough to steer. There will be weeks when you repair daily. That's not failure. That's maintenance. Bridges don't apologize for being painted every year. They're busy not falling. None of these moves require a personality transplant. They require attention, small bravery, and repetition. Start with 2 tools and use them until they feel like muscle memory. Feather check plus integrity ledger will often be enough to change the taste of a week. Add stillness when your mouth gets faster than your heart. Use tri-scale for decisions that would write checks your body has to cash. Confession will feel costly the first few times. It very quickly becomes the cheapest option you have. Value-aligned spend looks modest at the start. In a quarter, it reads like a new life. Rapid course, correct, keeps you from living under the same mistake for seasons. Expect resistance. Your old scripts will insist that drama equals action and that wait proves you care. Smile and choose lightness anyway. Expect a few raised eyebrows when you start saying, I won't, instead of, I'll try. The right people will exhale. Expect some awkward fixes as you learn the difference between honest and harsh. The feather will teach you tone. Expect quiet, ordinary wins to replace spectacular rescues. That is what balance sounds like. It stops needing violins. You don't need to announce any of this. Quiet tools travel further. People will notice because you will become easier to trust and harder to spin. Meetings shorten. Sleep deepens. You stop making bargains with yourself that you then have to hate yourself for breaking. And when you do break one, you fix it and move on. That's adult magic. It looks like competence and feels like relief. In the next part, we widen the circle. Willpower loses to design when you stand alone, but shared norms beat design. We'll take these personal tools into rooms, teams, and communities so that Maat scales from one heart to many without turning into performance theater. Willpower loses to design when you stand alone. Shared norms beat design. That's how Maat scales from a private instrument to a culture you can feel when you walk into a room. The point is not to turn your life into public theater. It's to make truth ordinary and repair routine, so lightness becomes the default, not the exception. Start small. A room is any circle you inhabit: family, team, classroom, studio, group chat. Maat doesn't spread by speeches. It spreads by agreements and receipts. Agreements say what we intend. Receipts show what happened. When both exist, trust compounds because the field matches the story. You stop needing to sell goodness because the outcomes are visible. Build rooms that make honesty easier than spin. Begin with a feather check-in. 2 quiet breaths before decisions that cost other people. Ask, aloud if appropriate, what's the lightest true move for self, others, whole? Name trade-offs before you proceed. Write them once, in simple language, so the weight is shared consciously and not exported to the edges. People do better when they can see the load. Track decisions the way engineers track changes. A short log: what we chose, why, expected impact, repair plan if it goes wrong. No essays, no legalese. This isn't bureaucracy, it's memory. When the future asks what we were thinking, we can answer without stories. Decision logs deflate blame because yesterday's obvious is rarely obvious in context. They also make good choices teachable. Design boundaries as features, not bugs. Publish quiet hours and keep them. End meetings with 1 honest action per person, not a wall of vague intentions. Make "I won't" a respectable sentence. If someone needs to say a hard thing, offer a form, lightest, true sentence, to the right person, with the repair they can carry. Rooms that reward boundaries reduce gossip because people can place their no where it belongs instead of sprinkling it everywhere. Replace performance with proof. If the group claims transparency, show a handful of metrics that actually map to lightness. Fewer rework loops, quicker repairs, lower sick days, longer deep work intervals, cleaner handovers, calmer customers. If a metric encourages theater, drop it. Measure outcomes, not optics. You will know you picked well because the body of the room relaxes. Make repair normal and fast. Adopt a 24-hour fix window where possible. When harm or a miss surfaces, the clock starts. No ritualized shame, just the smallest effective repair and a note on how we'll prevent repeat. Public spectacle is optional. Private cleanup is essential. Maat cares about the weight moving, not the volume of the apology. Create truth lines that can carry heat without blowing fuses. A no ambush rule. Feedback by appointment when stakes are high. A Steelman rule. State the other side's best version before you offer yours. A context note. Say what constraint you're under so your honesty isn't misread as hostility. Discernment means we honor tone and timing, not just content. Teach children measurement, not fear. Show them the feather by feel, how a kept promise makes the morning soft, how a lie, even a small one, makes the belly tight. Name it lightly. Does that make your heart feel floaty or heavy? Make 5-minute feather minutes, where a family picks one light action together: a tidy, a text, an apology, a glass of water for the plant you forgot. Ethics becomes embodied. Guilt becomes unnecessary. Protect rooms from outrage economies. Outrage can be accurate. It is a bad operating system. Build friction into hot takes. Slow mode channels. Overnight cooling. Off before publish. A single thread rule for arguments, so you fix the thing, not the people. Encourage. Once for awareness, twice for repair. If a topic resurfaces without repair, decide whether to do the work or to let it go. Stop rehearsing heaviness. Leaders go first under the feather. Model confession over performance. I promised X. We delivered Y. Here's the repair and the safeguard. Model boundaries. No emails after 9. Here's how we'll handle emergencies. Model tri-scale in the open. Show how you weigh self, others, whole, and where you mitigated. Leadership under Maat isn't charisma, it's visible congruence. People don't need perfect leaders, they need predictable ones. Economic choices carry culture further than slogans. Procurement that values durability and repairability sends a signal down the supply chain. We fund lightness. Hiring that prizes calm competence over frantic heroics shifts tempo. Lending that rewards maintenance and repair rather than churn keeps towns stable. These sound abstract until you look at a street where businesses last, neighbors know names, and ambulances aren't a nightly soundtrack. Maat makes places feel safe without needing more sirens. Guard against performance, spirituality, and forced vulnerability. No one owes the room their diary. Silence can be light. Offer private channels for repair and confession when the public square would turn truth into spectacle. If the group begins to admire the look of virtue more than the labor of it, stop and reset. What can we stop showing off and quietly do instead? Online, designed for grace. Set expectations for response times so messages don't become alarms. Use tags and summaries so people can rejoin after absence without shame. Default to opt-in visibility. Publish the work, not the person. Moderate for alignment, not ideology. Is this adding coherence or just heat? A small, well-tended forum often creates more change than a giant room trained to perform. Case studies look humble because lightness is quiet. A studio that ships fewer, better projects and never works weekends. A school that replaces detentions with repair circles and sees attendance climb. A clinic that schedules deep work blocks and watches errors fall. These don't trend, they last. Maat is not viral, she's perennial. When rooms align, individuals don't have to white-knuckle their values. The design carries some of the weight. That's how a culture returns. Small normals that keep us in tune without speeches. In the next part, we'll make it concrete with a 30-day alignment protocol, a sequence you can run solo or in a group to break the cycles of Isfet and let balance become muscle memory. Culture changes when individuals keep small promises in the same direction for long enough that the room can feel it. A protocol helps, not because it makes you pure, but because it makes you consistent. Treat the next 30 days like a season of balance training. 4 weeks, one focus per week, with the feather as your meter and your body as the dashboard. Before you begin, take a quiet baseline. How many minutes did it take to fall asleep last night? Where does the tension sit when you exhale? How quickly does your breath deepen after a surprise? How often did you need to explain yourself yesterday? Write these on a scrap of paper. You don't need an app, you need a witness. Week 1 is language. You will hear old scripts you didn't know you still obeyed, and you'll swap them without drama. Anytime you catch a should, replace it with I choose or I won't. If be realistic appears, ask, what's the lightest viable way? When don't talk back rises in your throat, try, ask me why, and I'll show you the rule. Speak smaller truths, sooner. If you feel the urge to decorate a sentence for approval, shave it to what your heart can carry. Each evening, write the heaviest sentence you said and the lightest sentence you could have said instead. You aren't chasing poetry, you're removing drag. You'll notice the feather responding within days. Fewer tangled threads to pull tomorrow. Fewer rehearsals in the shower. Less static under the collarbone. You are not fixing the world. You are stopping your mouth from making more weight for your body to haul. Week 2 is integrity. Keep the nightly ledger 2 columns, kept and slipped, and give every slip a 24-hour repair. No performances, just the smallest effective fix. Once a day, tell one courageous truth that reduces drag. A clean no where you offered a polite hedge. A plain yes where you've been hiding behind caveats. A repair for a commitment you orphaned. If your honesty lands like a weapon, soften the tone and add the action that proves you mean it. Boundaries belong here. I won't reply after 9. is an honest sentence. The repair is how you'll make sure people aren't stranded by that choice. Watch how rapidly problems shrink when the repair is real and the performance is absent. Isfet likes delay. Delay grows interest. Rapid course. Correct turns heavy into light before it hardens. Week 3 is value. Alignment, which means you fund lightness. 10% is the ambition. 5 is fine. 2 is a start. Money is one lever, but time and clicks are just as strong. Unsubscribe from what adds weight even if it is fashionable. Mute the outrage feed that hijacks your breath. Move the app that steals your mornings 3 swipes away, or delete it for 7 days, and see what returns. Buy fewer, better things, and keep them longer. Cook simple food your body recognizes. Send business to the local repairer who mends instead of binning. Give 1 hour a week to something that reduces suffering outside your bubble. You will feel the ledger shift. The week reads cleaner, not because you said nicer words, but because your spend now rhymes with your mouth. The feather hears where your resources go. Week 4 is systems, stillness, and the tri-scale. 10 minutes of silence at the same time every day is your metronome, not your medal. Equalize inhale and exhale until the rustle of the day drops beneath the floorboards. When choices start to sprawl, weigh them against self, others, whole in that order, only because a collapsed self cannot carry a community, and a healthy self that harms others still fails the scale. If 1 plate tilts heavy, mitigate before you proceed. If 2 tilt heavy, change course. If all 3 tilt, stop. You will not always find a perfect balance. You will always find the lightest, honest move you can make now. Document the trade-off in a sentence and share it with anyone who pays the cost with you. Reality respects declared load. Across the month, keep measures gentle and real. Rate morning lightness from 1 to 5 before you touch a screen. Note how many breaths it takes to settle after a surprise. Track 1 physical cue: jaw tension, forehead frown, shoulders lifted, and see if it softens when you speak cleaner, repair faster, and spend in line with your values. Watch for relational ease, fewer explanations, shorter apologies, laughter that returns without being dragged. Glance at sleep again. Did latency shrink? Did waking feel like surfacing rather than being hauled out? Observe creative output, not volume, but willingness to begin and willingness to stop when it is time. These are dull metrics to brag about and perfect metrics to live by. Maat is quiet like that. Run the protocol alone if you must. It works. Run it with 1 partner, and it multiplies. Agree the rules up front. No shaming, no grandstanding. Receipts over rhetoric. Silence respected. Share weekly baselines and 1 change you are proud of. 1. Not a montage. If you miss a day, make the miss short. If you fumble a truth, fix it privately before you narrate it publicly. If you catch yourself performing progress, take a day off the internet and pour the energy into a repair that actually reduces weight. Design the room to help. Slow mode hot conversations. Publish quiet hours. Choose proof over posture. Shared norms beat willpower when the weather turns. Expect weather. Some days the field will feel smooth. Others will feel like pushing a barrow through wet sand. Don't turn resistance into a story about your worth. The soil is changing under your feet as old ruts close and new paths open. Keep the move small and exact. 1 clean call to move a meeting you would resent. 1 10-minute tidy that unknots a morning. 1 apology that returns you to yourself. Isfet hates momentum. Maat loves maintenance. The difference over a month is not spectacular. It is cumulative. Ordinary competence, ordinary trust, ordinary sleep. This is the glamour of balance. If a week falls apart, forgive it and finish the month anyway. Maat is kind in the way truth is kind. She cares that you correct, not that you pretend you never drifted. The heart does not require spectacle to float. It requires congruence. 1 clean action after 5 messy ones still moves the scale. At the month's end, take your baseline again and compare. sleep latency, resting, tension, ease in conversation, willingness to start creative work, willingness to stop when it is time. If you tracked spending, did your money, time, and attention reflect your values more closely? If not, choose one lever to adjust next month and leave the rest alone. Improvement that sticks is better than firework vows. The point of a protocol is not to live under a stopwatch. It is to remember that universal law responds in real time, and that small, aligned acts alter the field more reliably than dramatic speeches ever will. You are not auditioning for heaven. You are tuning your instrument so you can play without snapping strings. In the final part, we'll take this from practice to purpose, what success looks like under Maat, how to measure a life that keeps its promises, and why the world gets easier to inhabit when you carry the feather instead of admiring it. Purpose isn't a costume you put on for the crowd. It's the rhythm your life keeps when no one is watching. Under Maat, purpose reads like equilibrium, truth in motion, right proportion across self, others, and the whole. Success stops being a highlight reel and starts being a stability you can feel. Mornings that don't punish you, work that doesn't require an alibi, relationships that don't need constant repair. A light heart isn't naive. It's engineered by choices that rhyme with the law the world already runs on. The old lens graded us on volume, more followers, faster cycles, louder launches. The feather grades us on resonance. Does this hold without you pushing? Does it age well when the music stops? Does it reduce suffering rather than export it? In that frame, a quiet business that pays on time and sleeps on weekends is a success story. So is a school that trades detentions for repair and watches attendance climb. So is a household that moves from apology theater to small daily congruences and stops living in a fog of almost truths. These are not glamorous metrics. They are the ones your body trusts. Redefining success means your calendar becomes evidence, not that you were busy, but that your time matched your values often enough that your week felt light. It means your spending becomes a signature, not a leak. It means your speech stops creating debt. Your future has to pay down. Under Maat, deliverables include sleep latency and steadiness after surprise, the laugh that returns quickly, the willingness to begin, and the wisdom to stop. You do not need a panel to validate this. You need a breath that goes all the way down. Nature hands you the template and the report card. Forests don't rush, and yet they feed everything in reach. Rivers don't hustle, and yet they carve mountains and keep going. Waste becomes food. Excess becomes balance. Feedback arrives early and exactly. When we live that way, homes stop feeling like terminals and start feeling like habitats. Teams stop needing heroics because they finally have design. Towns stabilize. The signal of Maat is boring in the best sense. Systems that quietly work, seasons that return, a future that isn't a cliff. You know you're close when the work stops needing speeches. The most convincing proof of alignment is the day after. Less cleanup, fewer misunderstandings, no dread when you open your inbox. The people around you don't need convincing because your choices remove friction from their lives too. That's a telltale sign of true success. It spills benefit without a marketing plan. Under Isfet, advantage concentrates and calls itself genius. Under Maat, advantage circulates and calls itself normal. This isn't sainthood, it's craft. You will drift and correct. You will overpromise once in a while and repair before the cement sets. You will say the heavier true thing and then learn the lighter precise one. The point is not to hover over yourself like a judge. It is to keep the instrument tuned enough that you can hear when the song slips. The longer you practice, the faster you notice. That speed is freedom. Signs of return are everywhere if you look at outcomes rather than noise. People are tired of outrage diets and are choosing long-form conversation again. Craftspeople who mend, regenerate, and teach are busy. Transparency isn't a press release. It's a dashboard with numbers that matter, and the rooms that publish them sleep better because they aren't bracing for the moment the mask falls. Ecological sanity is back on the table, not as a trend, but as a cost we finally remember we always paid. This is Maat, re-entering through mundane doors, procurement policies, office hours, water bills, compost piles, apology emails that actually change something. Purpose lives where your specific gifts meet the field's need for balance. You don't have to swap jobs to find it. You have to swap posture. The editor you installed in Part 7 becomes a compass here. What is the lightest true task that only you can carry today? It might be a paragraph no one else could land without lying. It might be a budget cut that keeps the hole from snapping. It might be an "I won't" that stops a decade of creep. Purpose is the place where your yes removes weight. Success is how long you can keep doing that without snapping yourself. If this sounds small for a world that's on fire, remember the physics. Alignment compounds. Repair is contagious. Quiet competence scales further than crusades because it doesn't need enemies to move. When enough of us put the feather above the pen, the spreadsheet learns to tell the truth. When leaders stand under the law, incentives change. When incentives change, culture follows. That's how a civilization returns to itself, not by nostalgia, but by practice. If you need one final diagnostic, try this. Imagine explaining your life to a child you love, not the captions the day. Would they feel safe inside it? Would they learn that truth makes things lighter? Would they see you choose balance when convenience invited you elsewhere? If the answers mostly tilt yes, you are already succeeding. If they tilt no, you don't need shame. You need one repair before sunset and one honest sentence tomorrow morning. The law will meet you immediately. It always does. You are not required to become an icon. You are invited to become a standard. The feather is not a trophy, it's a tool. You pick it up when you choose the small, true action over the grand performance, when you fund the thing that lasts, when you speak the sentence your body can carry, when you stop exporting your cost. Success, in the end, is not applause. It's a light heart that has nothing to hide, a ledger that doesn't need pretty words, a life that would remain recognizable if the network went dark. That is available today, and the bill for missing it is one you already know how to read. If you don't want to miss the off-platform breakdowns and practical templates we can't fit here, join the free newsletter via the link in the description. Subscribers also receive our free ebook right now for a limited time, and you'll feel the loss if you sit this out while others put it to work. If you feel this on a deep level, comment, "I get the code."